ChatGerry, Learning How to Live Through Survival, Engineering, and Human Reflection, number 1640, May 14, 2026, Gerald C. EclaireMD Foundation, category, Logbook of Learning Notes. Over the past 17 years, I have written 1,640 medical research papers, or what I simply call my learning notes. To many people, that sounds like a large academic achievement. But to me, these papers are something much simpler and much more personal. They are my daily learning notes, honest records of what I suffered, what I observed, what I learned, and most importantly, how I managed to survive. Between 1994 and 2004, my body gradually became a failing biomedical system. I survived 5 heart attacks. Later, in 2010, I was diagnosed with kidney failure, plus severe neuropathy and retinopathy. I had already suffered from obesity for 45 years and type 2 diabetes for over 36 years, which eventually led to a severe hemorrhagic stroke on June 21, 2025. During those years, I slowly realized a difficult truth. Doctors and hospitals are extremely important during emergency situations, but they cannot completely control the long-term direction of a patient's life. Chronic diseases do not damage the human body only during a short office visit. They progress quietly every day through bad food, high stress, poor sleep, inactivity, obesity, glucose damage, vascular stress, and aging. Eventually, I understood that managing survival itself is a full-time job. As an engineer trained in aerospace systems, nuclear submarines, nuclear power plant, artificial intelligence, advanced semiconductor chips design, mathematics, and physics, and engineering, I naturally viewed my diseases differently from most patients. I did not simply see symptoms. I saw systems behavior, accumulated stress, structural weakening, trigger points, and failure mechanisms. In engineering, a bridge does not collapse simply because one final heavy truck crosses it. The structure gradually weakens after years of repeated loading and unloading cycles. Human bodies behave similarly. Diabetes, hypertension, obesity, and vascular disease slowly weaken the biomedical structure over many years before a final event such as a heart attack or stroke appears. After my hemorrhagic stroke, I saw the bright white spots on my own brain CT scans. My structural engineering instinct learned at mid-1970 to immediately became activated. I no longer viewed those images only as medical findings. Instead, I interpreted them as structural damage inside a living biomedical system. Those bright white spots appeared similar to microcracks inside a bridge structure. I gradually realized that chronic glucose exposure from obesity and diabetes likely acts as a slow foundational damage process that weakens small blood vessels over many years. Blood pressure then acts as the final triggering mechanical force. In simple engineering language, glucose weakens the material, while blood pressure later triggers the rupture. That realization eventually became one of the foundations behind my TSI stroke model. What made my case somewhat unusual was the amount of longitudinal data I collected. Most medical studies rely on isolated snapshots such as annual or quarterly blood tests or office measurements. In contrast, I collected over 4 million of biomedical data points over 17 years, including continuous glucose measurements, blood pressure measurements, lifestyle records, symptom tracking, and behavioral observations that allowed me to observe not only the stroke itself, but also the long transition leading toward it. Interestingly, my 90-day moving average TSI stroke value remained near a dangerous limit for a prolonged period before my stroke occurred. There was no sudden explosive spike. From an engineering viewpoint, prolonged operation near a critical threshold is often more dangerous than one isolated peak value. This resembles structure fatigue behavior observed in bridges, aircraft, submarines, and nuclear reactors. 11 months after my stroke, I also noticed several unexpected neurological changes. First, I experienced approximately 10% to 15% memory reduction involving both short-term memory and some older long-term memories. Second, my emotional guard weakened significantly. I became much more emotionally sensitive to human suffering, sadness, and hardship. Third, and most surprisingly, certain areas of my thinking ability became significantly sharper, particularly turn recognition, systems integration, biomedical reasoning, systems analysis, and cross-domain thinking. For example, after my stroke, I suddenly remembered topology learned 6 decades ago and stochastic learned 5 decades ago, and later applied those mathematical concepts to my pathophysiology research. I do not describe these changes as mystical or supernatural, I believe they are more likely related to neuroplasticity, survival learning, accumulated knowledge, repeated reinforcement, and post-traumatic brain reorganization. The human brain can adapt in unusual ways after major trauma. Some neural pathways weaken, while others become more focused and highly reinforced. In some ways, it felt similar to reopening an old drawer and rediscovering forgotten documents stored there for many decades. Interestingly, research papers writing itself gradually became part of my cognitive rehabilitation process. After my stroke, I wrote nearly 300 papers within 300 days. My papers were no longer simply academic output. They became my learning systems logbook, documenting one human life attempting to understand disease, survival, neuroplasticity, aging, and human purpose in real time. Recently, Stanford University invited me to participate in their neuropsychology research program because they believe my case may represent a rare form of post-stroke neuroplasticity and cognitive reorganization. However, as I grew older, my learning notes gradually expanded beyond medicine itself. I increasingly found myself reflecting on intelligence, discipline, personality, engineering, psychology, aging, human suffering, and long-term life trajectories. I gradually realized that intelligence alone does not determine success, health, or longevity. I have seen highly intelligent people fail because of emotional instability, lack of discipline, poor judgment, or loss of life purpose. At the same time, I have also seen ordinary people survive incredible hardship through persistence, discipline, emotional stability, and fighting spirit. That realization changed my understanding of lifestyle medicine. Lifestyle science is not simple at all. It is not merely eat less sugar and exercise more. It includes nutrition, psychology, emotional control, physical education, human behavior, discipline, long-term habit formation, and environmental influence. Knowledge alone is not enough. Most people already know smoking, obesity, poor sleep, and excessive sugar are harmful. The real challenge is maintaining disciplined behavior consistently for decades. Long-term survival depends not only on knowledge, but also on character and personality. At age 79, I now realize that aging provides one unexpected advantage. When people are young, life often appears as disconnected events. But after many decades, the brain slowly begins connecting distant experiences, failures, successes, disciplines, and human personalities into one larger life trajectory. That is why my recent writings no longer feel like traditional medical papers alone. They have gradually become reflections about human life itself. Perhaps these papers, logbook, and learning notes may eventually help future patients, researchers, or ordinary people better understand human survival under stress, uncertainty, chronic disease, aging, and suffering. But at least for now, they honestly record one human life trying very hard to survive, adapt, learn, and continue moving forward under pressure. Survival itself is still my full-time job. This content is provided for educational reference only and does not constitute medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights for this article and its related materials belong to the author, Gerald C.